Thanks for tuning into Vital Motion Podcast. Let this be a place to grow your mindset and prioritize movement. All audio is original with music and production support from Riverside as my editing platform. This podcast is for education and inspiration only, and any studies or products I mention are simply for context. Take what fits into your life and check in with your healthcare medical providers as you feel is necessary. Thank you so much, and I'd love for you to like and subscribe to my channel. Happy listening.
Welcome back, listeners. This week we have Abby Rose on the podcast, who is a women's health and pelvic floor therapist and the host of her very own podcast, Your Sister the Doctor. So you'll definitely have to go check that out. We randomly met at a friend's wedding about a year or so before I started at ODU, where she graduated from. So small world. But yeah, today we're going to get to know her, and she's going to give us her take on things and her knowledge. And so, yeah, welcome, Abby.
Hi guys, my name is Abby. I am a pelvic floor physical therapist. I've been a PT for about 3 years now, which is crazy. Like time flies. I also went to ODU. I've been wanting to be a PT my entire life, basically. I always joke around that my dad brainwashed me into wanting to become a PT because he's also a PTA. And then I discovered pelvic floor PT when I was in school. I did my last clinical as a full-time pelvic floor rotation. And then I just never wanted to stop after that. I was also kind of having some pelvic floor issues myself, which is kind of what got me interested in pelvic floor PT from the beginning. And then now I work full-time as a pelvic floor PT in an outpatient clinic. I had my first student this semester, which is really exciting to be a CI.
Yeah.
I have also started doing a pelvic floor and core workshops and group fitness classes at my clinic, which has been really exciting. I've been starting to do a little bit of outpatient home visits with my company as well. So I've created a lot of little roles for myself where I work. And then I'm doing the podcast on the side just kind of for fun. And like my main goal with the podcast is kind of filtering physical therapy education through the mind of a girl and a doctor, encourage people to advocate for themselves, especially like women and navigating like the healthcare system. So challenging. But yeah, I see a lot of different types of patients. I see males, females, postpartum. I see ages probably early 20s to elderly. And yeah, I love my job.
Yeah, that's great. I love that introduction. I love that you're doing so many different avenues, like the exercise classes thing. That's awesome. And you said you're doing like the in like home visit health visits. You
Yeah,
said
I
doing
just
like,
recently started doing that.
okay,
So
cool.
it's
That's
like
awesome.
it's not home health, but it's like outpatient therapy in the home. So
Okay.
for people who maybe don't want to drive out to the clinic, I can come to their house and spend an hour with them, which is really nice.
Always need all the advocates we can for women's health, and I feel like you do a great job of that. And you just have like a very calming demeanor, which I love. And I
Thank
love that you
you.
do like a sister side and a doctor side, so it kind of makes it more relatable to people. So
Yeah, my goal with the podcast is to make it like less clinical. And it's like, here's what my advice would be as your sister, but I also have this doctor brain that I can filter information through and then hopefully give back to the people who are listening, which, my audience is for people like us. So,
great. So, okay, tell us a little bit about your rest menu and then just kind of like the meaning behind it.
yeah, sometimes it's hard to decide how to best take care of our bodies, especially like just the culture that we live in, like such a burnout state of society. So it's like you do get those, maybe you get like an extra hour one day and then you're like, I don't know what to do. Like I feel like I need something, but like the rest menu is kind of meant to be something tangible that you can go to when you feel like you need rest, but it's not necessarily what people think it might be. There's different dimensions of rest. So there's physical, mental, spiritual, emotional, creative, social, sensory. I think I listed most of them. But yeah, so it's just kind of an idea of you can look at the list and say, okay, these are the things that like if I really need physical rest, like what I can do. If I need social rest, whether that be like you need to recharge by being around people or being by yourself. So, yeah, it's just kind of like a creative way to kind of organize your thoughts as to what you need.
I like that. And I like your idea on one episode. I think you talk about like playing, just like
Yeah.
going out and doing activities that are fun, like, I don't know, pickleball or whatever. And I feel like we do forget as adults, like, to be kids, and we almost don't know what to do with ourselves when we are like resting, and I feel like we as a
Yeah.
society are like, we need to go, 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 do all these things. So,
Yeah, I mean, play, they've done studies on it. And like it does get you out of that like fight or flight state. And I feel like a lot of people, I mean, I see this in my patients especially, but I mean, we live in a society where we're all in fight or flight all the time. So it's nice
mhm.
to like take a break and like return to that childlike wonder that we all used to have and kind of let our nervous system like kind of go back to a baseline.
Definitely. Yeah, I know it's easy to have that heightened state all the time. So just being mindful is definitely important. Okay. So my next question that we're going to kind of talk about is it normal to pee a little when we're doing workouts or maybe like laughing?
No, definitely not. I mean, it's common, but it's not
Yeah.
normal. So if that's happening to you, please go see a pelvic floor physical therapist. We can definitely help you out. Yeah, just even if it's a little bit, like we shouldn't be leaking at all.
I figured so. I feel like sometimes it's like, we'll be, if I'm like in a group of people and they're like, oh my gosh, like I'm laughing so hard, I'm peeing myself.
Yeah.
It's one of those things that I feel like sometimes people are saying jokingly, but then other times it's like, no, is this actually an issue?
It's like pressure management. So like if you're increasing your intra-abdominal pressure, like when you sneeze, when you
Mhm.
cough. Same thing with laughing. Like maybe your pelvic floor can't handle like how much you're laughing, like if you're in a crazy laughing fit for whatever reason, but just like in general, like you should have control and the pressure should not be going down onto the pelvic floor, causing the leakage.
Gotcha. Okay, so what do you typically see as like the main cause behind that?
There's a lot of different like reasons why leakage can happen. It could be due to overactive muscles, which is kind of the opposite of what most people think. So basically, I kind of like compare it to like a bicep curl to my
Mhm.
patients.
Okay.
So like you're like in this flex state all the time. So everything is like really tight. And then your pelvic floor is like, okay, I need to control. And then it tries to control itself, but it can't go anywhere. You can't contract it anymore. So we need to
Gotcha.
relax the muscles so that they have the ability to contract. So that's why oftentimes we start with relaxation and pelvic floor PT. Most of the, I mean, sometimes it is because people have weak muscles, but that's not always necessarily the case. Sometimes it's the overactivity that causes the leakage. And like
Gotcha.
another thing is that people tend to push to pee. And that's
Okay.
not okay. That actually makes your pelvic floor muscles more overactive over time because you are since you're putting that pressure on the muscle and you're like kind of pushing out, that can kind of cause that muscle to have like that kind of baseline tone. And then you don't have as much control in general. You should just kind of
Gotcha.
let the pee come out.
Okay, that makes sense. I feel like I'm definitely guilty of that. Good information for us to think about, listeners. So, my next question I have, we're kind of jumping around here. What is your view on like cycle syncing?
So cycle syncing is like a trend, and there's not really a ton of research around cycle syncing. I mean, there's not very much research around women's health in general, but
Hmm.
they haven't really found that cycle syncing is scientifically supportive to female bodies. So I actually took a course on pelvic floor and menstruation. I've listened to a couple talks at like a pelvic floor conference about it. I think the biggest takeaway when it comes to like menstrual health and trying to balance things in your life is like tracking your symptoms. One of the speakers calls it me search. So basically, you're just doing research about yourself. Like every month, you're going to track, like, say, three different symptoms. And like you could do like a period tracker app, you could do like a journal. So, say that you choose like your daily energy, discharge, menstrual cramps, just start with that. And then track it over a 3 month span and kind of see like how these symptoms might line up with your cycle, like when you're ovulating or when you're menstruating. And then you can pick out trends, but you just shouldn't necessarily like tailor your workout routine based on just the fact that you're in your follicular phase, or because I feel like a lot of it's such a trend around social media and stuff is like, you want to follow this workout for 1 week and then do this and then do this, but like what are your goals for physical activity? Like, are you trying to build muscle? Like, you can still strength train when you're menstruating. You just might not
Mhm.
have like the same amount of energy, so maybe you don't go for like a PR that week. So it's like very intrinsic.
Hmm.
Everyone's
Definitely.
different.
Definitely. And I feel like that's why I was asking because you see it everywhere on social media and it's like, oh, when you're in your period phase, do this. When you're in your luteal phase, do this. And I feel like
Yeah.
it's like overwhelming and exhausting and it's hard to like push away that fluff and like you were saying, just like maybe be more in tune with your body and what you need that week versus like following some strict plan.
I've gotten to the point where I'm like, man, I have a really like low energy day today. And then like the next day I get my period and I'm like, oh, well, that's why. Like I kind of like have started to pick up on my body's cues of like, okay, that's why I couldn't like push myself in the gym. But yeah, like it's not necessarily like you should only do Pilates on the week that you're in your follicular and your luteal phase. Like that's,
Right,
you
right.
know,
Yeah.
yeah, like you want to make progress with like what you're doing and just kind of meet yourself where you're at. But like if you have higher energy, I mean, everyone's different. Some people like can run half a marathon on their period and they're totally fine. And then some people
Right.
like probably not. I think that's also like a common misconception that periods should be like painful because they shouldn't
Mhm.
be.
I know, I feel like in women's health sometimes they're like, oh, like you have that symptom, it's totally normal, when in reality it's probably not normal.
You can still like cycle sync when you're on birth control, but it's like
Mhm.
you're not actually having a true period either.
Right,
And
right.
a lot of people don't really understand that either.
Hmm. Again, going back to the influencer thing, there's a lot of people that are just trying to get clickbait, so it's nice to have like licensed professionals or people who are actually doing research, like presenting information, so it makes it easier for, people to like look out for certain things. We actually read an article in class saying, I feel like it was like some stat where like even professionals are like giving us misinformation on the internet, which is a crazy
Mm,
thing
yeah,
for us as we're consuming all of this info. So,
absolutely. Yeah. And I'm not saying like cycle syncing is bad. I'm just saying
right,
like, because like you can totally follow a cycle syncing routine if you want to and you love that
right.
and you think it works
Yeah,
well for you. But
yeah.
it's not like everything that the internet says, like you must follow this strict guideline. Um,
Right.
and there is research that like when women are ovulating, they are more prone to injuries. So like that is something that, there is research about like, I think it's maybe like soccer players and like ACL tears and things like that.
Mhm.
It's like when you're in your ovulatory phase, that can cause more ligament laxity, which can cause more um, risk to injury. Same
Gotcha.
thing with like when you're pregnant.
Hmm. Everything's just more lax.
Um, but yeah, you don't have to avoid things as long as you're doing everything right.
Kind of going back to just doing what feels best for you.
Hmm.
Okay, so moving on to our next question. What are some signs that your pelvic floor may be a little more too tight instead of weak? We kind of mentioned this a little earlier, but anything else you want to add to that?
Yeah. I mean, I really enjoy being a pelvic floor PT because you really do look at the whole body. You're not just focused on the pelvic floor. Like, there's so much that the pelvic floor is related to. Like, it's related to fascia, which connects to like your jaw and like if you have like tight upper traps, usually like you're holding stress in your pelvic floor too. And then the foot connection as well, like
Mhm.
people who have plantar
Mhm.
fasciitis or flat feet and like sometimes foot pain that can like be associated with overactive pelvic floor. So it's really interesting. Like there's so much more to the puzzle than just the pelvic floor. So
Mhm.
yeah, like signs would be like just have like overactive muscles in general, plantar fasciitis. If you're butt gripping, a lot of people like kind of
Mhm.
clench their butt all the time and don't realize
Mhm.
it. Like I do it. Like I'm like washing dishes and I'm like, oh, I need to like relax my butt. Like why am I just clenching? Um,
Yeah, I've done that before
or
too.
like yeah, or like even your abdominal region. Like yeah, a lot of people like try to suck in, and I think we're
Hmm.
like taught to like because we want to we don't want our stomach hanging out, so we just like want to suck it
Yeah,
in, but like that's actually really not that great for your pelvic floor either because you're not letting
right.
it like relax. So then it just kind of stays in this tight state.
Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely. I know those are all things that we subconsciously do. I feel like most of the time,
Yeah.
like when you're like taking a photo, it's like everybody suck in. So it's like things that we have
Yeah,
normalized, I guess.
totally. Another thing too is like people who breathe with just their chest and not so
Mm-hmm.
much with their like abdomen, like diaphragmatic breathing. Because like I mean
Definitely.
it's amazing how many patients that I see that are in their retired years and they're like, I'm just learning how to breathe now. This is so crazy. I've been breathing wrong my whole life.
I know that's always a funny thing, like teaching people how to breathe again.
Yeah.
And it's kind of frustrating because you just have to like reconnect that mind and body, and it can be really tough to do. Because we're such creatures of habits. We just don't even realize half the time that we're going through things. We're cyclical beings.
Yeah,
We're always doing
absolutely.
stuff and we don't even realize that.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And then that kind of feeds into the next little bit. Like, what are your take on Kegels?
It's actually crazy because like if you get into the pelvic floor side of Instagram, like there are therapists who are cyberbullying each other about this topic and it's like, okay guys, like why
Really?
are we so conflicted about it? Yeah.
Yeah. It's
But
crazy. There's pelvic floor beef.
yeah, there is. It's crazy. But anyway, so I think, I mean, I could be wrong, but this is kind of my take. I feel like there's a generation of pelvic floor PTs who are like only prescribing Kegels. And like maybe
Hmm.
that's how they used to do it. And then a new wave of pelvic floor PTs come in and they're anti-Kegel. And so they're like, don't do Kegels, it's making things worse. Look at
Hmm.
like the biomechanical chain, like start at the foot, work your way up. Don't even touch the pelvic floor. Just ignore it and then your symptoms will get better. It's so interesting. But in my opinion, I think I mean, all my patients start out with their breathing mechanics. So
Hmm.
checking to make sure that they can diaphragmatically breathe. And then we work on deep core activation, so transverse abdominis activation. And then with that, you also get a co-contraction with the pelvic floor, which is a Kegel.
Hmm.
So
Hmm.
I'm not just like prescribing Kegels to prescribe Kegels. I'm focusing more
Right.
on coordination of can you breathe properly? Can you manage pressure properly? Can you do a pelvic floor contract and a relaxation? Usually people are really good at the contraction. They don't know how to let go of their pelvic floor. So
Mm-hmm.
that's interesting to retrain. But yeah, I mean, I don't think Kegels are bad. I think they're a good objective measure, but it's
Hmm.
not necessarily like just do Kegels and then your pelvic floor will get better because sometimes the issue might be overactive. And then it kind of goes back to what I was saying before, like you can't contract a muscle that's already in this contracted state, essentially. So we need to
Right.
learn how to let go of the muscle first, and then we can add in the strengthening piece. But a lot of it is coordination. I feel like Kegels are just kind of a small piece of the puzzle. It's a
Hmm.
good objective measure, but if you cannot relax fully, then you're not going to be able to contract your muscles.
Hmm.
So there are certain times when people have low tone of the pelvic floor when I would prescribe them Kegels for their HEP, their home exercise
Hmm.
program, but there are
Okay.
certain times where like that's not indicated and just doing Kegels is not going to solve your problem because you might have like an overactive problem.
Right. Yeah, it's just, I guess, kind of patient basis too. Everyone's different, like you said. And
Yeah.
so you just got to
And
find what works for them.
the pelvic floor is like it's like any other muscle group because there's like the slow twitch and endurance and the fast twitch like speedy muscle fibers. So
Hmm.
sometimes it's like an anticipatory response that you have to train. So like when you're coughing,
Okay.
sneezing, there's the knack. So you're supposed to naturally kind of contract your pelvic floor as you cough or sneeze. So
Okay.
basically, when you cough or sneeze, your pelvic floor should automatically contract. So that's why
Okay.
you have like a knack for it. That's why it's called the knack. But after you have kids or you have an injury or something, sometimes you lose that reflex. So then people bulge out instead of like
Gotcha.
contracting. So then that's
Yeah.
something that we would retrain like the fast twitch fibers of like, okay, every time you cough, sneeze, laugh, you're trying to Kegel with it
Yeah.
until it becomes more automatic. And then hopefully you
Okay.
don't have to think about it anymore.
Oh, I didn't know that. I mean, we learned about the fast and the slow twitch fibers, but I didn't think about that in the pelvic floor. I feel like we always dissociate it like being so different from the body, even though it's attached to
Yeah.
us, if that makes sense. It's kind of like you think it's
Yeah,
this like whole
definitely.
foreign different thing, but it's really not. It's all the same in
Yeah, it's
multiple
just like
ways.
any other muscle group. And
Okay.
like that kind of goes into like when I'm working with runners too, like
Uh-huh.
trying to retrain their pelvic floor to like voluntarily contract, relax. Then it kind of transitions into over in like involuntarily. Like I'm not gonna have my patients like diaphragmatically breathe for
Right.
the rest of their life, but hopefully there's
Right.
some carryover. Same thing with like Kegling every time you land when you're running,
Hmm.
because that would be a lot. Like you're not thinking about
Yeah.
Kegling as you run, but but we do exercises like that to train your muscles to automatically do it, essentially.
Hmm. Yeah, that would be crazy, Kegling every time you'd run.
Yeah,
Kind of. I mean,
otherwise
you
it's
still have to
like
like
you're
train it.
cutting your yeah.
Yeah, no, that seems sometimes so impossible. Okay, good to know there. Um, and then my next little question is, what is something that people do maybe every day that might actually be making their issues worse? I feel like we also kind of talked about this, but yeah, anything else you would like to expand on?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing I see in everybody, males, females, older people, younger people, new moms, it's like not breathing as you make transitional movements throughout your day. So,
Okay.
like when you're sitting up out of bed and you're holding your breath, you're creating more intra-abdominal pressure on your pelvic
Mm,
floor. Going from sitting to standing, going from laying down to sitting up, like things like that, or like lifting things or twisting. That kind of goes into like pelvic floor dysfunction is associated with a lot of low back pain. Why is that?
mm,
Maybe it's
mm,
because you're having trouble managing the pressure because everything is, you kind of think of your abdomen as like a canister of air. So if you're like holding your breath, then you're creating more pressure there, and that's going to
mhm,
cause symptoms somewhere, whether that be like through the abdomen or through the pelvic floor or through your back. So I think the biggest thing is that just people hold their breath when they're doing things,
mm,
even if they're like the simplest things, like getting out of
mhm.
bed.
Hmm. Okay. Yeah, that's good to know. I feel like I'm probably definitely guilty of that as well. Just like little things that you're just
Yeah.
not aware of until you are aware of it. And then I like sometimes I hyperfixate on stuff. I'm like, oh, okay, I do that. I need to stop doing that.
I'm
But
definitely guilty of it too. I notice a difference like when I get out of bed and then I'm like, oh, why did that really hurt? And I was like, oh, I wasn't
Mhm.
breathing. Like, and then I try it again and I'm breathing and I'm like, oh, that feels better. So
Yeah.
yeah, it's something that we all do. And
Hmm.
just like more awareness of like how we can improve that is helpful.
Definitely. Yeah. And I feel like being in the physical therapy world, we're so just hyper aware of everything anyway. Like it's
Yeah.
like how we're walking, how we're breathing, all the things,
Yeah,
because we're taught all these movement, like correct ways of posture and movement. And obviously, nothing's ever going to be perfect, but I just feel like I'm always like
for
hyper
sure.
aware of stuff. And then last little question is, what is a common misunderstanding about pelvic floor?
I think kind of what I said earlier is that pelvic floor physical therapy involves way more than just like an internal exam or looking at your pelvic floor or looking at Kegels. It kind of takes a holistic approach to physical therapy, which I really like because we're looking at, your food and fluid intake. We're looking at your habits. We're looking at how you move, like the human machine. You're looking at like more of a holistic approach to um the body because the pelvic floor impacts a lot of things like your bathroom habits, like,
Mhm.
sexual dysfunction, postpartum function. There's so many like different avenues you can take when it comes to pelvic floor physical therapy. And I think a lot of people don't realize that some of the issues that they've been dealing with are number one, an issue, or number two, can be fixed.
Mhm.
So I think just it's nice that there's becoming like that there's more awareness as to like what pelvic floor PT can do, but I still feel like there's a lot of people who don't understand. Or
Mhm.
until they like, their doctor's like, oh, like go to PT and they come to me and they're like, my doctor sent me here for what is it called? My pelvic floor PT. They don't even realize like what they're coming for. So yeah.
Right. No, and I mean the power of patient education is so amazing. And I feel like there's definitely becoming more awareness of it. Like I know I talked to a lot of my friends who have had babies, and I'm happy to see that like doctors are actually recommending it even sometimes beforehand too. So I think it's
Yeah.
great that there's just this wave of more people understanding it. And I think there's actually like maybe like 4 or 5 people in my class that are interested in pelvic floor PTs.
Oh, yay, that's amazing. Yeah, I was the only one in
Yeah.
my class, I think. But now I'm getting like people reaching out to me from my class like years later and they're like, "Hey, I want to get into this." So there is going to be
Yeah.
more from my cohort, but they're just not immediately getting into it. So
No,
that's really
definitely.
exciting.
I know. Yeah, I'm kind of back and forth with a lot of things. I definitely am interested in pelvic floor PT, but I also love like the sports medicine side of it. So I feel like though, like you were
Yeah.
saying, it is more of a holistic approach. You're kind of looking at the whole chain, not just their pelvic floor.
Even if you go into sports med, like you're going to encounter people who have pelvic floor dysfunction, like without a
Mhm.
doubt. So having a background in that is going to be helpful, even if that's not exclusively what you do. So
Mhm.
yeah, I think it's really helpful just for PTs in general to have at least an idea of like how to treat the pelvic floor, even if it's like all externally, you know.
Mhm. Definitely. And I feel like that's the great thing about our profession is there's so many different avenues that you can go down. And you may be like super niched in on something, but you can still, have the background of like other avenues or I guess settings depending on what you're doing. So yeah,
Yeah.
it's just awesome that, like I said, that you have your platform and you're educating people and doing what you do. So keep doing amazing things. And thank you so much for coming on the podcast. Is there anything else that you want to add or any final thoughts? Where can people connect with you on socials?
Yeah. So I think that everybody can benefit from pelvic floor PT just because like I mean, I can give pelvic floor advice to till I'm blue in the face, but I feel like a lot of people don't realize like how much, it can really impact their life. I
Hmm.
think it's interesting because a lot of male patients that I have come to me as like a last resort, but it's because they
Hmm.
didn't realize that they could come to me beforehand. Now it's
Hmm.
like their issue has gotten so bad that they don't know what else to do. Some research shows that like men aren't going to talk about their pelvic floor issues to their peers like females are, which
Hmm.
if you think about is very true. So,
Hmm.
it's a very vulnerable thing that they're doing by coming to pelvic floor PT, but there's still a population that really needs it. We have like similar symptoms and issues. I think all postpartum moms, prenatal and postpartum moms should come to pelvic floor PT, even if like there's nothing really going on. It's just nice to get screened by a pelvic health PT. I had
Hmm.
one patient tell me like her OB recommended her not get pelvic floor PT until she was done having kids, which I was
Hmm.
like, oh my gosh, no.
Yeah.
Um, so I'm like, I'm happy you're here because like
Hmm.
everybody needs like prehab and then like you have a
Hmm.
kid and then you're gonna have another kid. So it's like you want to like, stop this domino chain of like the issues from your first kid going on to your second kid and all of that. Don't hesitate to go to pelvic PT if you feel like you really need it. Or even if you don't feel like you really need it, don't hesitate to go just because your issue is minor.
Right.
Because the worst thing that will happen is that the PT will be like, okay, we can work on this, but like, it might just be a few sessions and then you're good to go.
Hmm.
I feel like there's always something to work on.
Hmm.
Um, but yeah, if as far as like my platform, I'm at sisxdoc on Instagram. My podcast is Your Sister the Doctor. It is on YouTube, Spotify, and Apple Podcasts. And then my like work pelvic floor PT account is Authentic PT Abby. So that's where you can find me.
Awesome. Cool. Well, thank you so much for your insight coming on today, sharing your knowledge. I really appreciate it. And yeah, hope you guys have a great rest of your day.
Thank you.